What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is snowing again in New Hampshire after probably 2 or 3 weeks of no snow and brick cold, like single digits Fahrenheit cold. And oddly enough, the snow usually insulates the frozen ground. So it's funny that up here in the Northeast, when you get snow, sometimes the temps come up because the frozen ground is now insulated by the snow. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get below 0 temps here in January or February, because it's definitely coming. But we are currently getting a dusting. I don't know, it's 2-3 inches maybe. The sun's trying to peek out. I mean, it's undeniably beautiful, but boy, I wish the season only lasted about a month. So, have yet to scrape the yard. I'm waiting for it to kind of get done snowing, since my OCD will make me plow this place more than once if we get more snow after I plow it for a first time. But I'm gonna get out here and scrape up the yard a little bit with the shovel. That way, if this sun does peek out, we'll be down to bare pavement. But welcome back. In today's episode, we're working on the Corvair, the chop top Corvair, not the white 4-door. You guys saw in the last episode, we got the 700 over here. Now that the shop is getting to a point where I think I can comfortably start to work on my projects, even though this side of the shop has to get organized and kind of set up a little bit better, I don't know what's going on over there yet. So before we roll the 1000 SP back in here and get back to work on the auto union, I wanted to tidy up a few things on the chop top. And one of those is addressing my carburetors. This thing has 2 single barrel Rochester carburetors on it since it's a Monza. The Corsas had a 4 carburetor setup on them, and the Spiders had turbos on them. So the Monza's kind of like the runt of the litter. It's a 110 horse. I do believe they had a 90 or 95 horse. The 110 on the badge on the trunk, or the hood, technically, stands for the 110 horsepower. That's honestly one of my favorite badges on a Corvair. It is so cool with the checkers on it, as if that car is winning a checkered flag in anything. These carburetors have basically been untouched since 1973. I mean, honestly, since 1973. I've had this thing for 11, almost 12 years now, and all I've done is put fuel filters in them. I've cleaned them, I've sprayed some carb cleaner down through them, but I've never had them apart. I've had them off the motor when I went in to reseal some stuff, but even when they were out and on the bench, I never took them apart. I just sprayed them down, cleaned the fuel bowls out, got it to a point where it would run okay, and that was it. I've honestly dealt with this for far too long. Today, we are going to be swapping the carburetors out on this car. Since those chokes aren't working and the little vacuum diaphragms are broken, I'm going to bin them altogether. Well, not bin them, but we're gonna take them off. And you guys may remember the white late model Corvair I have, the 67 4-door, is seized up. That motor is seized, unfortunately. I didn't know it when I bought the car, but it's got good looking carburetors on it. I haven't seen inside them, nor have I ever heard them run. And my father recently purchased an early model Corvair that is far too rotted out to go back on the road again, that has a motor that runs and has brand new carburetors on it. So the carburetors on the seized motor in the white Corvair are going to go on this. Because right now it's just kind of a pain. It doesn't want to stay idling even when it's warmed up now. So I'm gonna go scrape the yard, maybe even plow, and then we'll head over to my father's shop where the white Corvair is, and we'll pull those carburetors before coming back here and taking a look at them. But also, as I've mentioned on Instagram, she's staying right here all winter. As long as I can do it, that truck is not going out there on the road. Alabama truck, never seen salt. Look at that, look how solid. Nope. Don't want to put her in the salt if I don't have to. All right, guys, we're over at my father's shop where the rest of all my junk is. We're gonna pull the carburetors on the white late model. Now, if you remember, I already robbed the stock exhaust off this car once I realized the motor was stuck. And I'd spent a whole lot of time building a new custom exhaust for the chop top Monza. just to realize it sounded like absolute garbage. So knowing that the motor in this car was stuck, there really was no reason why I couldn't take the exhaust off this just so I could drive the chop top and not wake the dead driving by cemeteries. So this thing's already missing the stock exhaust, and now we're gonna rob the carburetors because the carburetors look good and they're all there. We probably can't see it on camera, but we have like a 2-inch deep pond behind the white car. So gonna try to push that forward a little bit. Come on. Yes. Much better. All right, well, I've had these off already, so they shouldn't put up any bit of a fight. I'll start with the air box, and that includes the tube that goes to both carburetors. There's a breather that comes up into this. All right, so I didn't bring any tools, but we're back working out of the shop I worked out of my entire life, which is my father's shop. He's laid the shop out differently since I moved to Tennessee and then moved back, so it's like a whole new shop now. I mean, it's the same old building that he built by himself when he was 20, but all the tools are in different locations now. All right, let's start with the air box. Let's hope that since I've had all of this off before, this is very easy. Get this breather off. These little J hooks on the air breather are usually 3/8. Oh, that was not even connected. That one's not even connected either. Get that off. All right, let's get these things closed up. I'll pull the auto choke linkages off next. Looks like I'm missing a little clip on the choke linkage on the driver's side. See if I can rob one off the chop top. Hopefully I've got one there. All right, let's go for fuel lines next. I think they're 7/16. They are. All right. Again, it's really nice that I've had all this stuff off already. And it's really nice that this is a Texas car too. Or Texas and then lived in Georgia. There's hardly any corrosion on any nut or bolt in this engine bay. And I'd be willing to bet, although don't want to jinx it, most nuts and bolts underneath the car are in a comparable state, which is going to be amazing when we finally dive into this car, this white one, because I'm hoping everything comes apart real nice, real easily. All right, go get that off by hand now. Yep, okay. Probably what I'll do is I'll just leave this 1-inch retainer bolt in the carburetor because that's what holds the little stone fuel filter in the body. There's no fuel coming out of it, we know that. Okay, I'll do the same over here. There's nothing worse than breaking a fuel line fitting loose and the fuel line turns with it and you twist it right off. That is just the worst. And growing up in New Hampshire, being in the Mark I and Mark II Volkswagens, that happened far too often. You needed your torch ready at all times when taking anything apart on a 70s or 80s Volkswagen from New Hampshire. You need a Phillips. We'll take the whole throttle linkage off in one piece. So the throttle linkage that goes to the carburetor is also just a little retainer clip that holds it on. I'll save those too. They're a little bit bigger than the auto choke retainer clips, so you know which one they are. I don't know if the Monza has any of this stuff. I've kind of been running that Monza on zip ties for 10 years. Let us take the throttle pedal return spring off. Take that out. Is that a flathead in there? What is that? What are you? Phillips holds the brackets that the linkage that goes from carburetor to carburetor mounts to the carburetor with. Boy, when a Phillips screw breaks free nice and easy, that's a good day. Although these are like little machine Phillips screws, so I can't imagine these ever being super, super seized up. 3 Phillips screws on both sides. I might take this whole throttle linkage with me, just so I have it. Okay, well there's the throttle crossover linkage. We'll take that with us. Throttle linkages are free. Vacuum line is free. All right, well I think we just have the 2 flange nuts holding them to the intake studs. That's it. All right, number 1 coming off. Okay. Carburetor number 2 coming out. Okay. All washers and nuts and hardware accounted for. Nothing lost down into the motor. You'll see what I'm talking about here, how the mounting studs for the carburetor on the intake manifold are short and tall. So this tall stud goes all the way up through the body of the carburetor, and the nut's right on top. So you actually don't have to fight with getting another nut underneath the wide part of the body of the carburetor, and just fight by feel alone until you get it off. I don't think these gaskets are good. Oh wow, they might be. See if we can get these things off. Oh wow, I think this might be. Oh, I think this is good. It's probably more brittle than the day it was made, but we'll compare it to the ones that are on the Monza. I'll take those too. All right, well I got the carburetors off, manifolds taped up. She's already seized, but doing what we can. And darkness is upon us because it's like 3:30 p.m. in New Hampshire in the winter. I talk about it a lot, but I really am stoked to bag this car, put some cool wheels under it. I know I got a lot of projects. I got a lot going on, but man, a 4-door late model with the windows down, no pillar, would just be the coolest looking cruiser. So it's kind of counterintuitive robbing parts off of it for the other Corvair, but soon, kind of soon. She's good though. Full blue interior, dual bench seats, manual. Yeah. Okay, so we're back from my father's shop. I've got the carburetors off the white car. And I think what we'll do next is we'll pull the carbs off the Monza. And we'll kind of compare and contrast as to what we're going to move over. I know I've got brand new fuel filters in the Monza carburetors, like brand new. Like I don't know if I've even been down the road in the car since I changed the filters out. And on these Rochesters, they're right here in the housing of the carburetor. I think this is a 1-inch hex that normally takes your fuel line fitting, and you back that out, and there's a little spring on the inside of that that holds the stone filter in. It's a little cylindrical stone filter. So we'll pull these out. We'll take a look at them. All right, so I didn't bother taking the time to explain every step of the way, taking the Monza carburetors out since we just did on the white 67 4-door. But I've got the carburetors out of the chop top Monza now. We've got them over here on the workbench with the 67 carburetors. Well, let's pull the fuel filters out of the 67's carburetors and see what they look like. Did I already put? I already put these in. I put brand new fuel filters in these carburetors when we tried to start that car for the first time. I'm now remembering that. Oh my goodness. We'll put some fluid film on all the linkages. We'll free up all the adjustment screws. All right, well I just went over to my drain tank and soaked this thing down in some carb cleaner. Just to kind of knock anything loose out of it. Just to kind of help them come back to life. All right, so I just kind of time-lapsed the initial installation of the carburetors, and I'm glad I did because I put them in backwards. Although they're symmetrical carburetors, they aren't side-specific, but the throttle linkage orientation is, and I had them backwards. The Airlift 3P management, the air suspension management in this car, has a little bit of a draw for memory. I don't know what the draw is, but I do know that this battery is overdue to be replaced, and if it sits for about a week without running, it dies. So it's low right now. We'll let it sit on the charger for a little bit. I do also think I'm long overdue for an alternator swap. This alternator was on the car when I went and bought it, where it had been sitting for over 40 years. So that alternator might very well be the original 1965 alternator. It does charge, but not at idle. You have to rev it up quite a bit to get it to charge. So that's another thing on the checklist for this car that I've just been procrastinating to no end, is getting a good 90 or 100 amp alternator on that car. But I think we're just about ready to fire this thing up. All right, well, battery is charged, but we're gonna leave that right where it's at, just in case. We've got to crank on it a little bit to get this thing started. All right. That started, honestly, much quicker than it would have when I'd been driving it. You know, not even a cold start. So that's a good sign. Let's take a look, make sure there's no fuel leaks. I think we're looking pretty good. Chokes are opened a little bit. Same on both sides. We'll leave those where they're at. The one thing I'm unsure of is if these auto chokes will actually work, if they'll pull down when the car warms up to open the choke. The signs of life that soon. I didn't put any fuel in the fuel bowl. I didn't spray any starting fluid in there, nothing. So far it seems pretty good. Let's see, try number 2. Okay, so I pulled it outside so we didn't fill the shop up with fumes. And since it's really cold out, I've just closed the doors. Although it doesn't sound good, this is a huge step because the car would not idle on its own with the other carburetors if I wasn't on the throttle in the car. So the fact that this has been sitting out here idling for a few minutes is huge. Now what I'm doing now is messing with my air fuel mixture and my idle speed adjustment. I haven't checked timing yet. Timing very well may be out, but also I think I've got a stuck valve. It comes out of it as it warms up. When I actually drive the car, it smooths out like minutes into driving it. But the chokes are working. They're open now. They were closed when I first started it. I really need to mess with the air fuel mixture too. I had a couple of fuel leaks that I tightened up. The accelerator pump seemed to work in the carburetors. All right, so I brought the idle speed up and actually messed with the mixture a little bit. I didn't reset the mixture to factory settings. Basically, the mixture screws need to be cranked all the way in and then backed out 2 turns to be factory settings. I don't have a dwell meter or a tack on this car, so I don't know exactly where it's at for idle. And yeah, we've got we've got a lot of issues in this car. This motor has not come out since 1965. Even after being parked in 1973 and sitting until 2013 when I bought this thing, the motor hasn't come out. It's got the original bearings inside, the heads haven't been off, original head studs. Everything's original on this car. Basically, I've just tried to keep it running enough to drive it to shows and run it around town to go get coffee. Just had a little bit of a leak around that filter housing, and I tightened that up. All right, guys, it is the next morning. I keep the shop right around 50 degrees Fahrenheit overnight, so we're gonna get this thing started once more. Another cold start with the new old carburetors in it. Silas, are you making sure I'm doing a good job? Silas, you wanna go for a ride? Wanna go for a ride, buddy? Oh, buddy, oh. Stay right there. Good boy, bud. All right, guys, yet again, we are outside in a balmy 18 degrees Fahrenheit. So cold. 2 episodes in a row now, we've got 2 of the air-cooled cars in sub 20 degree Fahrenheit temperatures idling on their own, which is huge for my pile of junk. Now, obviously, as I mentioned before, we have a laundry list of stuff to take care of on this car, and we're one step closer to dialing this thing in more. So that's really what I was aiming for. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode, guys. Just a little bit of progress on the Corvair. Huge progress, in my opinion, since now I can walk away from the car and keep it running. But I basically wanted to tackle this project and at least get this much progress on the Corvair so we could get it out of the shop, up here in one of the other bays, and get the Auto Union 1000 SP back in the shop so we can get back on that project. Well, that's it for this episode, guys. Gonna get back inside where it's warm. Gonna start laying out building a new welding table, which you might see in the next episode. But from there, hopefully we're back on the Auto Union. I can't wait. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next episode.